Welcome again to our session, and we are really excited, for this very, very needed topic. So, Michael, just making sure that you're recording the session. Okay, great. So our agenda today. So first, we are going to start with a poll to see what stage you're at in setting up your operations. And then when Cindy gets going with her presentation, she'll review the differences between an employee versus a 1099 independent contractor, tips for setting up your business structure, looking at the basic building blocks and financial and legal and technology. And then we will have some breakout discussions. And in those discussions, in those smaller rooms, you'll be able to kind of noodle with your peers. What are some of the burning questions that you have around these three topics: finance, legal, and technology, and any tips that you might have to share. And then we'll bring you back to the main room where Cindy will be our expert and she will be able to answer your questions live. So we're going to start with our poll. And our poll is, what stage are you in at setting up your operations? Either you haven't started, you don't even know where to begin, you do have a plan but need resources to move forward, or you're actually already in the process. So Michael, if you could launch our poll. All right, so feel free to answer. All right, so it looks like we're kind of evenly split here.
I'm sorry, Sherry, just apologize. I've been having technical issues, but I'm now on. So thanks for your patience.
Of course. So it looks like we are kind of evenly split here. Everybody's, in a different position, which is good to know. You're kind of all at the same spectrum, kind of
right. Excellent.
All right, so with that, I'd like to introduce Cindy Major Martinez. Cindy, thank you so much for being here. Cindy is both a small business owner. She has been actually for the last 25 plus years, and she's also a technology consultant to small businesses. So she knows what it's like to be a business owner herself, and she's been a consultant to small businesses in every discipline you can possibly imagine. So she's got a ton of experience. I've known Cindy for years, and I'm just so delighted to have you here, Cindy. So with that, absolutely. So you are welcome to take it away.
Okay, perfect. Well, let me I gotta move something over here. Well, welcome everyone. I'm very excited to be here today and to speak with you. One of the things that I always tell people, it's better to start out with a good structure than trying to go back and retrofit things like operations. So I've done both, where the business took off and then you're scrambling to get these your building blocks in line, and then I've done it the right way, where I had them in line and then I was able to build. So this is it's a very important topic, and as Cher said, probably not the most exciting, but you'll find as you go into business, it's one of the most important. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about employees versus 1099 independent contractors. As an employee, you've received a W-2 tax form annually. Typically by the end of January every year, you get your W-2 form in the mail. And what it includes is your yearly earnings and taxes withheld from your paycheck, and the payroll taxes that your company pays the government. And then when you move to an independent contractor, you receive a 1099 tax form. And the 1099 just includes income paid to the contractor from the company. It's the total amount. There are no taxes taken out. And each company that you do work for, if you earn over $500 with them in a year, they will send you a 1099. So you have to keep track of those, and then you'll turn those into your accountant when you get ready to do your taxes. The 1099 will not show any tax deductions because the contractor is responsible for your own taxes, and it includes your self-employment tax, so your Social Security and Medicare payments that your company used to pay for you. Now you're responsible for making that payment. So typically that's about 7% of your gross income per pay period. So it's very important that you set that money aside so that at the end of the year, you don't have a very big tax bill. So
actually, Cindy, if I can jump in here also, that in general, it's good to sort of put aside 30% of what you earn, because all your taxes together, not only including self-employment, but everything is usually about 30%. So just a good idea to keep that on to the side.
Thanks, Shara. So let me see here. I'm just moving things around. I've got windows here, so I'm, let me see.
I'm happy to go to the next slide for you.
Yep, that would be great.
Sure.
So the next item we're going to discuss is setting up your business structure. A sole proprietorship is just you yourself, you're setting up in business. You don't need to register with the state. You simply list your social security number on the 1099 forms, and you keep track of your business expenses, you keep track of your business income, and you pay self-employment and income tax. The other structures that are available are LLC and S corporations. And going back, an LLC stands for a limited liability corporation. And then there's an S corporation, and these are the most popular for independent businesses and contractors. Myself, when I started my first business, for some reason I thought I needed a corporation, and I didn't consult with an accountant in the beginning, and then found out we were giving money away, and we reestablished our corporation as an SCorp. So that was very beneficial. And then the other two types of business structures are the C corporation and a partnership. Usually the partnerships you'll see in like legal partnerships and CPA firms and things like that, medical practices.
Cindy,
Yes.
just and you might be getting into this later, so if you do, please tell me. Some things I've read talk about how you actually can set up an LLC on the back end and an S-Corp on the front end. Is that something you'll be speaking to?
Well, I can't speak to the level that a CPA would. I can tell you that my current company is set up that way, where it's an LLC, but an S-Corp, recognized as an S-Corp. So at the end of the year, we receive K-1s for, as income.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go to the next slide. Do you want to?
Yep.
Okay, so the first building block we're going to talk about is financial considerations. First, an accountant. An accountant is going to help you identify your best business structure based on your personal tax situation. So the best time to meet with an accountant is now, as you're getting started, if you haven't already, and sit down with them and go over, where you have been tax-wise. And then they'll help you manage not only your personal taxes, but also your business taxes. And they'll help you take advantage of deductions in that. So it's extremely critical to find that accountant, someone that you can work with that specializes in small businesses. The other thing they'll do is they're going to want you to track your expenses, because you're going to get to write some of those off in your business, or a percentage of them. Examples are your mileage, so keeping track of your mileage. If you're driving to client sites, your home office, the space in your house that you use for your home office can also be written off, as well as the percentage of the utilities, maintenance, etc., that you pay for that percentage for your house. You get to take a percentage of it that's from your home office and write that off too. So there's a big advantage to tracking those. The next item we'll talk about, the IRS, is an employee identification number. The employee identification number, instead of using your social security number, if you apply for an EIN number, that kind of keeps things even more separated. And in my experience, some of the government contractors will not hire you as a subcontractor unless you have an EIN number. So some of them are very reluctant about the Social Security numbers. And it doesn't cost anything to get an EIN number, so I'd highly recommend that you apply for one. And you can go to the IRS site and look up EIN form, and it's there on the site, and you can download it, and there's instructions. The next item we'll talk about is your bank. You're going to want to open a bank account, and you do not want to commingle your personal funds with your business funds. So the best thing to do is have a separate checking account for your business. And then also apply for a business credit card or line of credit. And I say apply when you're getting started because it's better to apply and have it before you need it. So that's the biggest thing to remember is it's always good to have access to capital before you need it. When you get in a situation where you need it, usually it's hard to get. So that's just one of the rules. And with changes in the economy and that, it's just always good when you can get that and set it aside. If you want to, you can also, if you have multiple personal credit cards, take one of the personal credit cards and set it aside and only use it for business expenses. And don't use it for personal expenses any longer. So you want to keep that separate. The other item is you're going to want to get paid. So there are a lot of different options. We talk about PayPal, Square, QuickBooks has a service that's built in where you can send out your invoice and it enables them to pay you back via credit card or ACH. So it's that's the best way to get paid. So you're not waiting on checks and having to keep track of that. And it's easier for the clients these days too, because they put it in their payable system. And then finally, establishing a banking relationship. So community banks and credit unions, they love small businesses. They are part of your community, typically, more in touch. Where the big, large banks, they're great, but they just don't have their thumb, or they don't have their thumb on the pulse of what's going on locally and with small business. So I encourage you to ask around in your area and see, which community banks and credit unions that people recommend. So are there any questions right now as far as these topics, the financial considerations? Okay, we'll go to the next slide then. The next topic is legal considerations. So an attorney, it's better to develop a relationship with a business attorney before you need one. So hopefully you will never need an attorney, but they are there to give you advice and help guide you and protect you should something happen. They'll also help you with your legal structure. So what they're going to do, their job is to reduce your personal and business risk in collaboration with your accountant. So they're going to work with you to say, okay, if something were to happen, that your personal assets would be protected. So that is really important advice to have. Excuse me, I've got a tickle in my throat. Contracts are the other item that your attorney will help you with. They'll help you determine if you're going to need a contract. And typically it will be a standard contract, but you want to make sure that when you're doing business with someone that you can get paid and that everything's all clear and upfront as you're doing business together. I'm just going to take a drink of water here. Thank you. Let's see, non-disclosure agreement, the NDA, for when you share product or intellectual property information with potential partners. Say you have a great idea and you're needing to talk with people about your idea. You're going to want to protect your idea, so someone else can't just take it and run with it. So you'll want a non-disclosure agreement. Also, you may be asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement by someone that you're doing work with. So if you have access to proprietary information, they will ask you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Just this one here. Liability insurance. Excuse me. It protects your business from potential lawsuits. So having liability insurance for your business is extremely important, and you have to look at the industry that you're in. Myself, we're in the technology industry, and there is a lot of exposure. For instance, if data is lost or if there's a breach and it's our responsibility to protect the client, and through our doing something happens and they have a breach, we could be responsible for that. So you want to talk to your attorney about your exposure, and then you're going to want to talk with a business insurance person about your exposure as well, depending on the type of business you're in. And then finally, consider getting a personal umbrella policy. Usually it's about $1 million. And you can get that through your mortgage company. They'll add an umbrella policy along with your mortgage insurance policy. So let's go to the next slide. Excuse me. The third building blocks that we're going to talk about is connectivity. You're going to need to make sure, since you're getting started and you're going to be doing a lot of work on the internet, that you have a very reliable internet provider. The other thing is you'll want to consider is having a hotspot. So a hotspot is helpful when you're out in public. Please don't use the public Wi-Fi's in the Starbucks or the airport. Those are not secure, and the bad guys like to go there and see what information they can find with people not being secure. So the other thing the hotspot can do is it can serve as a failover if your main internet provider goes down at your home office. The next item we'll talk about is software applications. So you're going to want to consider, what do you need to operate your business? What type of applications do you need? So productivity tools, Microsoft Office, G Suite, Microsoft, it has all your Excel, Word, PowerPoint, all different types of tools that you can use for your productivity. Then you'll want to look at maybe project management.
Actually, Cindy, can I interrupt here? Do you want to share with people about Office 365 for hosting their server in the cloud?
Yes. Well, Office 365, you can, as Shara said, you can share it's in the cloud. So your data will be held in the cloud in something called a OneDrive. And so you connect through the internet versus having to have a server or saving information on your local drive. So it's very helpful. You'll have access to your data wherever you go as long as you have connectivity. So it's extremely helpful. And Microsoft Office 365 is very robust. It also includes things like Teams and various other items that you can add on, calendaring, everything like that, so that you can have a one-stop shop for your tools.
And if I could just share a personal anecdote, if you ever lose your computer or you have to get a new computer and everything's up in the cloud in Office 365, it's literally nothing to retrieve all of your information just like that. I've had to change computers, and I mean, they just plugged in and then whoosh, everything came down. I didn't have to worry about anything being on my hard drive. I always have a feeling of safety. If I should ever lose my computer, it's always up there. So that's just my own personal experience.
And it's also encrypted and secure. So you've got built-in encryption in Office 365, which is really important.
And it's very inexpensive. I think it's like $20 a month or something. It's just super inexpensive.
Then the next item we'll talk about is project management. So if you're working on projects, there are free tools out there. You'll want to look around. There's Asana and Teamwork and many more. But as you're starting out, there's a lot of free tools that you can start out with. And then as you grow, there may be a monthly charge. Client relationship management. So you'll want to keep track of who you're meeting, how you're contacting them. So your CRM, your Zoho is a great one. They have a free CRM to start out with, so does HubSpot. And then your accounting software, there's QuickBooks and FreshBooks. When you meet with your accountant, they're really going to help dictate which accounting software that you should use. I know every accountant that I've worked with, they've recommended QuickBooks, and I was able to give them, set up an accountant access so they can go into the books, pull down information, and put together my financials without me having to put information on a thumb drive or take them hard copies. So they will help you determine what accounting software is the best for you. And they have different levels based upon, the need for access and how big your organization is. And they can grow with you, they can scale with you as well. Supply chain management and distribution. If you're going to be selling a product, then you'll want to look at supply chain management and distribution software. Zoho has an inventory. There's also Sortly. Another thing to consider is that Amazon, they have a whole section for small businesses where they'll help you and set up a distribution through them. So basically they'd store the product and send it out, and then they'd offer customer service on your product as well. So that's an option as well, and that would enable you to use their system instead of having one of your own. So let's go to the next one. Website technology. Establishing an online presence, so important as you're starting a business. The first thing you're going to want to do is go out and secure a domain name. So the domain name is going to be some version of your business name. And then you'll want to have a website built. And then that website is going to need to be hosted. So once you have the domain name and then you build the website, it has to be hosted. And a lot of times the companies that help you with the website, build the website, they also host, but always verify that how it's going to be hosted. And then you'll want to set up your business email address, and your email address should be we will be using your domain name. Please don't use anything like at yahoo.com or at Gmail. It makes you look very small and less legitimate. So what you want to do is use your domain name and then set up your email addresses with that. And then your hosting company can help you set up Microsoft Office 365 online. And you'll want to link the payment account. So there's options where you can have, if people want to buy information or items from your website, there'll be a link to a payment account. And then going again, if you're going to be selling products online, that you're going to be needing a e-commerce site. So it's more involved than just an informational website. So you'll want to look at an e-commerce platform. And one suggestion that I have is I've used GoDaddy, and through GoDaddy, I've been able to get all of these items taken care of as a one-stop shop. So I'm not having to go one place to get the domain name, another place to build the website, and then set up the email addresses. They will walk you through all of those items. And there's also other companies out there that can help you. A couple that are out there are, I've got a list here. Let me see. There's Bluehost. There's HostGator. There's a DreamHost and Namecheap. So those are some other options outside of GoDaddy that can be used for setting up your website technology and establishing your online presence. So, are there any questions at this point? Right.
Well, we're going to have a chance for that now. So we're going to actually break you out into small groups, and you'll have several people in each room. And this is actually a chance for you to share your burning questions around any or all of these topics with your colleagues. And also, as you're sharing with each other, share any tips. You know, if you have gotten started, as I guess a few of you have, based on the poll that we conducted earlier, what's worked for you? You can also certainly share what hasn't worked, but we do certainly want some best practices as well. So this is a safe space for you to talk to your peers. So you're going to be broken out into actually 3 different rooms, and Cindy is actually going to bounce around. So in whoever happens to be in room number 1. Or actually, Cindy will go wherever she first starts out, and then she'll stay there for 5 minutes, and then she'll leave, and then she'll go to another room and another room, and so you'll have a little bit of one-on-one time with her. After 15 minutes of the breakout rooms, you'll all come back here to the main room, and then we'll have a much bigger conversation, and Cindy can address topics at large. So, Michael, when you're ready here, you can go ahead and break people out into rooms, and make sure again to hit the blue join button, so that you can go into a breakout room.
And here we go.
Yes. So I didn't get to visit one room, and I do apologize. I ran out of time, but I know you guys had a wonderful discussion, I'm sure. So what I'd like to do is just open up to the groups, the different rooms, and tell me some of the questions that came up during your discussion. Was there a main theme, or was there various themes? What were some of the questions that came up?
The group, I'll start. The group I was in, I mean, we focused on like the LLC versus an SCorp, and then we also kind of talking about, I guess, like prioritizing of because it seems like there's a lot of like a laundry list here that could add up very quickly to your expenses. That was short-lived, but if there's things that could be prioritized or things that could wait a little bit, until you get up and going. Even like insurance, like why do you need umbrella insurance with the sole proprietorship or as you get into the SCorp level. So kinds of things like that is what we were talking about.
Right, yeah. And as you're in a startup, one thing, and you'll find it on the BoomerWorks site as well, is use the resources that are offered through the small business development centers in your area, which are funded by the SBA. And then also SCorp is the Service Corps of Retired Executives. And those can be resources that don't cost you anything as you're getting started, and can be very helpful. So I know that when I first got started, I went to the SBDC and they helped me fill out the form for an EIN. So there are resources out there where you're not having to pay. And then, that's a great idea, prioritizing, really looking at your specific business and where, there's risks. And if at this point there's no risk and you really don't need the insurance, then, that shouldn't be a top priority. So very good conversation.
Yeah, and I'll just say my personal experience too, just like Cindy, when I was starting out years ago, I happened to live in Alexandria at the time. And so I went to the Alexandria SBDC, again, free service. They were great. And they actually referred me my accountant. That particular SBDC, I don't know if the other SBDCs do this, but they actually have a running list of all kinds of local businesses, you know, attorneys and accountants and all these different things. So if you want, you know, just quick resources, plus again, the Alexandria SBDC also had clinics all the time. Just kind of small little clinics you can kind of pop in and learn a little this and learn a little that. Again, all free. So you would just type in SBDC or Small Business Development Center, and I think most every city or county has one in the country.
Yeah, they do. And that one in Alexandria, I visited there quite a few times myself, and they were excellent. They're just really helpful, and their programming was really, really good.
Yep.
So I know I live in Loudoun County, Virginia, and the SBDC is very active up there. And then I know near in Fairfax at George Mason, there's an SBDC center. So if you look it up, SBDC, you'll find one near you.
And you mentioned that the whole LLC versus SCorp. Now, I am not an accountant. I don't play one on TV, but my accountant taught me a couple things about it. And I hope I'm going to say this correctly, but please go to your accountant to get verification on this. But one of the main differences between the LLC and the SCorp, other than the SCorp does actually provide a little bit more legal protection, which is nice, is there's a tax implication. It can be beneficial, depending on how much money you're earning, to go for an SCorp as opposed to an LLC, only because with an LLC, all of the income that you get is being taxed at one rate. The whole income is one ball of wax. As an SCorp, you are the employee of your company. So you pay personal taxes and you have what's called a K-1 statement. Now you're paying taxes on all of it, but it's two different things. So it's taxing on the personal and then taxing on the K-1. And when I say personal, what I mean is that you claim a salary and they call it a reasonable salary. So if you made $150,000 total in your business, you could usually claim like a $50,000 salary. You're paying taxes on the 50K, then you're paying taxes on the remaining. So it's two different tax rates. Whereas with an LLC, your tax bracket goes up because everything's under one ball of wax, right? The other way you break it up. So that's my quick and dirty. I'm seeing Cindy nod her head, so if it sounds like I'm on target.
Oh yeah, I found that out with an LLC and had a big tax bill.
Yeah.
So,
now it is a little bit more expensive to set up an SCorp on the front end because you're literally setting up a corporation. It's like, I think like $500 or something to set it up, whereas an LLC is like $99. You can go to LegalZoom if you want. Your accountant can set up your SCorp as well, or sorry, your LLC or your SCorp. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there that there is a difference, and depending on your earnings, it could make a difference as to which one you choose.
What other questions came up as you were in your breakout rooms?
Edith had a question in the chat box. Any recommendations for a central hub to keep all your records?
If you're using like 365, Microsoft Office 365, you can store your records in a file in OneDrive. That is one option. The other, option for keeping track of records and everything like that, as far as like financial records, is there's a way in, I know that QuickBooks, you can scan receipts and track through there. So having an accounting application that works for you, very important. But I would suggest, use your OneDrive and develop a file structure, a very simple one. That says operations, marketing, financial, however you want to structure it, make it simple and store, you have all of your information in one place, and then you have access to it as long as you have access to the internet. So that's what I recommend. Any other questions?
Cindy, do you recall any questions from the breakout rooms that you attended?
Yes. One of the things that Iris brought up is that she is in financial services, and that because they're affiliated with a larger organization, they get a lot of their back-end support. So things like technology and commission payments and that. So although your or Iris's company is independent, there are some advantages to being like it's similar to a franchise where items are taken care of by the larger organization. So that's another structure that's available out there. And then you pay a fee to the parent company for those things. But Iris, anything you want to add to that?
You're on mute, Iris.
It's just like much easier for us to start because the back end, the platform, everything is ready. You can just, we pay monthly platform fee, just $20. And then we got a website for us, like a personal website, very professionalized. And we also we are registered rep. We have our email, very linking with the company, so it is very professional looking, and so that's a very good support for from the company.
Another item that came up, Beth was talking about taxes and needing an accountant, and she said that she's involved in her local chamber, and that through a CPA was going to refer her to an accountant. So, the chambers are a really good place for small business owners to meet people that support small businesses. And you'll also, be able to talk to the different business owners and see who they're using and what their experiences are. And so they're a great resource for you as well. How many, or does anyone want to share being part of a chamber? Are you part of a chamber? How have you found, the assistance that you get there?
I love it since I joined. This is Beth. So it's just the pandemic has really messed it all up, because the biggest thing you get from it is networking and meeting people in person, and all the different businesses that are part of the chamber. We do virtual things, but it's just not the same. So. Yeah. Edith did post on here that the Freelancer Union is good for insurance and resources. And that's another thing to remember, is if you belong to associations, professional associations, sometimes you can get discounts for services. So that's definitely something to look into.
Yeah, and Freelancers Union is designed specifically for freelancers, and benefits are kind of one of their main offerings, just because they realize freelancers typically don't know where to get benefits, so they coalesced and offer it. So I think it's freelancersunion.com.
What other questions came up?
And actually, Edith mentioned something else in the chat about the difference between SCorp and an LLC, and she mentioned that, what is the goal of the business? Will it be passed on or sold? If it's an LLC, it cannot be passed down, but if it's incorporated, it can. But if you with an LLC, you would have to disband it if the ownership changed. I didn't actually know that. So thank you, Edith, for that.
And that brings up a great point that I tell people, usually when we start our business, we hang up our shingle and we're ready to go. But it's important to think about how, once you get into your business, how are you going to want to exit? Are you going to want to close it down? Are you going to want to sell it? Those are things that go into the planning, even in the very early stages, so that as you make business decisions, it'll help support that ongoing, that future plan. So one of the things that as I've worked with small business owners is they were like, well, I don't have a retirement because I'm going to sell my business and that's going to be my retirement. and you know, setting up a retirement plan for your small business. You know, I highly recommend that, because very few businesses actually sell. And so you've got to have a plan. And if you are going to want to sell your business, you need to structure it in a way that it'll be ready to sell later on down the road. And so, you know, that's when, you know, that's further down the road. If you're going to stay a sole proprietorship, you know, you've got to just determine, okay, what does it look like if I don't want to do this anymore? And you'll be able to, you know, kind of have a plan. But it's always good to have a plan.
Any other questions, Cindy, that you came up with from the groups?
No, we had a lot about, you know, taxes, LLC, SCorp. Those were primarily the ones that I came up with. Any other questions outside of what we just discussed that came up in the other room that I'm sorry I didn't get to?
And this is one of those topics you don't know what you need to know until you need to know it. So it's just kind of one of those things. Cindy, do you want to put your email address in the chat box in case people have follow-on questions?
That would be great. And I'm always happy to help. And it's exciting to have, you know, so many new business owners, and you're going to do great.
And so before we wrap up, actually, because since we have some time left, because we have a small group of you guys here, you know, we at BoomerWorks are trying always to find good educational topics to present. As for those of you who've been with us since we started doing these Zoom calls in April, we've covered a range of things and marketing and so forth. So anybody have any specific topics that you would like us to find a presenter on that we haven't maybe yet done, or something that's just interesting to you personally in your business? You can frame it as, how do I such and such?
Develop market.
How do you what?
How to develop your market.
How to develop your market. Yeah. And Iris, have you been with us? Were you here when we actually did a little bit around that already? If you go to our, we're happy to do some more for sure.
Okay.
So if you go to boomerworks.org,
Okay.
then you go to the training center.
Okay.
There is, we have 3 different topics that are kind of related. One is refining your business concept. One is called market research. And the other one is called marketing your business. And there are videos from these presentations just like this.
Okay.
Along with some downloads. Every video, every presenter has had downloadable worksheets that went along with the presentation, and the PowerPoints are there as well. But yeah, we're always looking for more topics. We're gonna, and for those of you who are interested, so our next presentation is actually not going to be a presentation. It's going to be what we call a growth group. And that's going to be our first launch around having actual peer discussions. So kind of like what you just did, but not just on this topic, on any topic related to your business. So you'll come together in a main room. We'll split you off into small groups for a chunk of time. There'll be a facilitator in that group who will lead a discussion around whatever business challenge you are facing. So it's a safe space to, you know, get tips and encouragement and advice. You guys may be able to network with each other. You never know, maybe a little partnership might form right there in the group. So we're really excited about that. We'd actually like to do that once a month. So that's kind of a peer roundtable setting to encourage community building within our BoomerWorks community. Kind of like a mastermind group, yes, very, very much like that. Yep, yes, Mike. So yeah, and there's been a couple more chats here. A question around how do I find a mentor or advisor? Yeah, so, well, first of all, SCorp, that's the first thing, because SCorp is actually designed for that. They are a nonprofit and they offer free coaching services. If you go to SCorp.org, there are actually, as my understanding, here in the DC area alone, there's like 60 SCorp mentors, but every city has them. I'm not sure if we have anybody outside of this area. And they offer, I think, Cindy, I'm not sure if you know this, I think it's at least an hour a month you can get
Believe
with,
so.
if you can get with an advisor. Now, if you're looking for paid services, I'm just going to offer myself only because the question was asked, not because I'm trying to market myself, but I do happen to do that. And Cindy knows that. Cindy and I work
Yes,
together.
so you do.
Just in case you're interested. But if you're looking for something free, SCorp definitely is a good place to go. And again, the SBDC, they're great. Everything that they offer is free. As I mentioned earlier, they do clinics. And by the way, too, the more small business owners you can find, the more of a peer network advisory group you can form, not just a mastermind group like what we're going to be offering, but one-on-one. As the more small business owners you meet, as you find people who you're sort of compatible with relationally, maybe your businesses are similar, you're going to find that they're going to be a natural level of support for you. Certainly encouragement, but also idea sharing. They could hold you accountable. You could talk to them on a regular basis, get ideas flowing, help each other through pitfalls. Sometimes having a peer is just as good, if not better, sometimes than having a coach, because it's somebody who's walking the journey with you. So highly encourage you to find people. So please come back to our growth groups and maybe somebody will be there for you.
One of the, I'm sorry.
No, please go.
One of the groups that that has really grown in Northern Virginia is something called Net 2.0, and they have several different branches, and I believe it's like $5 a week to attend. It's very inexpensive, and that group is very, very active. They, if you look it up, Net 2.0 on, they have a Facebook group, and you can get information there. But that's a good place for people just starting out to go. So very active group. And then the other thing is the enterprise centers at the universities and community colleges can also help you. So those are, some suggestions to help you get started.
And there are also business networking groups out there. The most famous, if you will, is called BNI, the Business Networking International. I'll mention them with sort of a bit of a caveat. They are the largest and oldest and literally international, and there's a BNI group, gosh, everywhere. In fact, in this area, I don't even know how many there are. On the one hand, they're very established, they're very structured. It's what they call an exclusive group, meaning the people in that networking group represent only one industry. So you won't have any competitors in the group, which is always a good thing. Now, they are so structured that you have to make a real commitment. They meet usually every week at a certain time. You can't miss meetings. They insist that you provide leads for other people. You have to provide, I think, at least one lead for somebody else in the group. It's very, very structured. If that fits you, great. If you're a big networker and you want to jump in the pool, there's usually a BNI group for you. They're very structured. And there are a lot of groups that are not BNI with the label. They're just kind of random groups that pop up that are not that structured and don't require that kind of commitment. But as you network with people and you hear about other groups that they're involved with, ask them. Say, what are you involved in a business networking group? And if so, do you like it? Can I join? Can I try it out? There's a lot of them here in the DC area to think of. Some are generic, and some are very industry specific. So I know in the association community that I'm a part of, and Michael Butera is a part of, there's a group that formed actually not too long ago just for people in the association world. So there are industry specific ones, but a lot of them are pretty generic. Oh, also the chambers of commerce tend to do them too. So Nova Chamber, I think, has one. Reston Chamber, Tyson's Chamber. I know Reston and Tyson's do. They've got their own version of business networking groups.
Yeah, Loudon Chamber as well. They have the different groups that you can join, and it is just one from each industry. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of them out there.
Sheila just mentioned, I'd like to know how to build my business debt-free. I'm trying to do a budget with estimated cost for setting up, but I'm not sure how much to allocate to things so the things that Cindy talked about today. Would SBA help me? Yes, and again, SBDC in particular, I would very much encourage you, because the SBDC is local. And they're the ones who are going to be much more akin to kind of helping you a little bit more one-on-one. In fact, when you go to the SBDC, you actually get an initial consultation with them. They'll sit you down. I think I spent like an hour plus with my representative, and they just got to know me and my business, and what do I need? And they referred me to this one, and like actually consulted with me on the front end to launch me. Cindy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, you know, trying to build debt-free, I mean, you know, there are resources out there that will help you. There is in Springfield, there's a SBDC that's specifically for women business owners, and they do small funding, and they help you with the finances, and it's the women's, I'll look it up and I'll post it really quick, but they will help you as well. So they do get involved in some of the capital and helping you structure budgets and everything like that. So it's the Women's Small Business Development Center, and it's in Springfield.
By the way, I just wanted to also share a resource when we were talking about payments, and Cindy kind of gave a laundry list of options, and she happened to mention PayPal. I'm not trying to do a commercial for them, but I use PayPal and I've been extremely pleased with them. And one of the things that's really nice about PayPal is once you've been using them for at least 2 years and have a good reputation, you don't have people charging back, I mean, you're actually a good, solid business, you can sign up for what's called their merchant portal. I think it costs like $30 a month. And the beauty of that is that you will then be allowed to take people's credit card information over the phone. So it's not like you have to send an invoice. PayPal will trust you to take your client's credit card information. It's stored safely in their portal. And once the client gives it to you once, they don't have to give it to you again. So there are some advantages to actually building a relationship, and PayPal has actually been, they're trying to act like a bank now. So it has a lot of similar features, and also once you've been with them for a while, you can take out what's called a capital loan. It doesn't affect your credit whatsoever, but you can take out a loan. They start you small, and you can build up as you pay it back. But they are just, I have personally just a really great resource.
There was someone had posted a question about how to find capital if you've got a challenged credit, and you know, it's as much as you can do to not have to go into debt to start your business. That's always better, but there are some lenders out there. They're not going to be your typical banks. They're going to be lenders like Lending Club and online lenders that are available for small businesses. But the caveat there is they're going to charge you a lot of interest.
Yeah.
So that's the one caution that I have for you. But they're out there offering alternative funding to people that banks won't fund. So that's an option.
Ida said, is the Women's Center now called the Community Business Partnership? I didn't know they had a name change. Cindy, do you know?
I was looking that up. Let me see here. It looks like it is. It's now called the Community Business Partnership. And they have,
Go ahead. That's fine.
They have some good programming as well, classes and that to help you start your business.
Yeah, I think more the general tip here is, I think you're getting, ask questions, right? Ask questions of consultants, ask questions of your colleagues. People have so many resources, places they've gone, tools they've used, groups they belong to. People are chock full of advice. Just ask. Really.
And, you know, small business owners want to help other small business owners.
It's true.
There and, you know, lifting each other up. They've gone through what you're going through, and, you know, for me, I can say that the best thing I get to do is help other business owners be successful. And, you know, to see them succeed, that just does my heart good, and it's good for everyone.
And I got to tell you personally, that's literally how I found all of my tips and tricks It's how I got into PayPal. It's how I learned about Office 365. It's how I learned about everything that I've done. Even when I first got onto Zoom, another colleague was the one who introduced it to me long before COVID. You know? I mean, it's amazing how many resources you're going to find from colleagues. So with that, any other questions that we can address? All right, so with that, let's just wrap up here, and I just want to make mention that this presentation is going to be downloaded. You can find it on boomerworks.org/business operations. In the next day or so, you should be able to find it. And then there's a checklist that Cindy put together called the Basic Operations 101, the Basic Building Blocks for Your Business Checklist. And so that is literally a checklist of all these different areas just to keep yourself on track. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a training center tab with this ongoing collection of the presentations that we've been doing and we will continue to do. So we are pretty excited about that. And if you want to connect with us, please feel free to send us a note at info@boomerworks.org. We are a volunteer organization that does have some expenditures. So please, we do encourage you to donate whatever you feel is the value of what you've been learning here. We have volunteer opportunities, and regardless, we would just love for you to be part of our community. So go to boomerworks.org and hit the join button and just fill out a little form, and we will keep you up to date as to what we're doing. So with that, we wish you all a blessed evening, and thank you all for joining us. And we hope to see you at our next event on October 8th, where we do a growth group. So thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Good meeting, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.